The Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk has been with us for some time now, giving buyers the opportunity to purchase a rugged crossover that can take on the deep snow and mud and also the off-road trails, while at the same time still being comfortable, daily drivable, and family friendly. Now in 2022 and heading into 2023, rugged crossovers have become the new trend, with new rivals emerging such as the Subaru Forester and Outback Wilderness, the Ford Bronco Sport, and maybe even the Mazda CX-50. Today we're going to take a deep dive into the Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk. I'm really interested in seeing how it compares to those rivals that we now have on the market, and also see why, if you are looking at buying a vehicle around $40,000 and you want one that is suitable for all applications, then maybe taking a look at the Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk might be a great decision. Now before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Central 44 Jeep Chrysler and Dodge in Raynham, Massachusetts for allowing me to do this review. The link will be in the description below so you can check out their extensive Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, and Ram inventory. Also, before we get started, make sure to hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video goes live on the channel. And so, without wasting any further time, let's get right in this review. Long before everyone wanted to buy an Overlander, Jeep was well ahead of the curve, and in fact, pretty much by themselves for rugged off-roaders that could also be ideal daily drivers. Specifically for the Cherokee Trailhawk, this crossover has enjoyed a lot of success through the years, and now, quickly approaching close to a decade of dominance in this market, the Trailhawk is no longer the only contender, as Subaru and Ford now accompany Jeep in this space. With this generation being one of the older offerings, one question that continues to be brought up is whether the Cherokee Trailhawk still is a viable choice in 2022. Starting off with pricing, the Trailhawk comes in at just under $38,000, and when compared to competitors such as the Outback Wilderness, Mazda CX-50, or the Ford Bronco Sport, it falls right in line, and actually with the optional packages and features, even with this generation getting up there in age, the Cherokee still might be more appealing than the new arrivals in this market. Also sitting near the top of the four trim levels for 2022, the Trailhawk is arguably the most capable and flexible, despite the Limited taking on the role as being the pedestrian and upscale model for the Cherokee. Compared to other trims, the Trailhawk receives off-road suspension that improves the ground clearance to 8.7 inches to inspire confidence when tackling the elements. But also a bright spot for this Cherokee is its 4,500-pound towing capacity that does outclass rivals to make this crossover very versatile. With that versatility comes rugged aesthetics to set the Trailhawk apart from the Altitude and Limited, as the molding on the front bumper with the two visible towhook mounts and the immediately noticeable front skid plate lets you know this crossover means business. The rest of the front fascia goes untouched for 2022, as Jeep's signature grille design has been a staple for the road presence of the Cherokee for years, and with the LED headlights and fog lights, you should have a sufficient amount of lighting when traveling down dimly lit roads or on the trails later in the day. While outwardly its durable qualities makes its presence known, much like we'll experience inside, the Cherokee Trailhawk can still blend in on the roadways with other compact crossovers. Moving over to the side profile, the Trailhawk will be sitting on 17-inch diamond-cut aluminum wheels wrapped in all-terrain tires. And contrary to what you may have experienced with other crossovers that offer a similar package, the Cherokee is a pleasant vehicle to drive around, whether it be on the highway or back roads, and that's something we'll get more in depth on during the test drive. Since this Trailhawk is in black, you'll have color matching side mirrors with turn signal indicators to go along with blind spot detection for added safety. Then making our way around to the rear fascia, just like up front, the plastic cladding for the rear bumper is more aggressive than what you'd find on a standard Cherokee. It's also from this angle where you get a better idea of this crossover's off-road capabilities, as its approach and departure angles are more than ideal for avid adventurers. You'll also have dual exhaust outlets, which adds a sportier look, but also highlighted in red is a rear towhook mount for when you need to get your friend's vehicle free when traversing the trails. Under the hood, The Trailhawk is powered by a 3.2-liter V6 engine, producing 271 horsepower and 239 pound-feet of torque, and is paired with a 9-speed automatic transmission. Being one of the last crossovers to utilize a V6 in this segment, power delivery is linear, and not once did we feel it was inadequate for getting on the highway and passing slower drivers. And in fact, because this powertrain is rare for this market and price range, the Trailhawk brings a unique character when aggressively accelerating, as the 6-cylinder has a more inspiring sound than a naturally aspirated or Turbo 4 from rivals. For the drivetrain, of course, we have 4-wheel drive, with the Trailhawk having off-road capabilities. And when it pertains to fuel economy, you're looking at right around 18 miles per gallon in the city and 24 miles per gallon on the highway. Stepping inside, you're greeted by premium vinyl-trimmed and heated front seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side being power adjustable. The Trailhawk offers a number of packages to improve the interior quality and ownership experience, where you can upgrade to premium leather upholstery while also giving passengers power lumbar support and adjustability, and also receiving ventilation functionality as well. However, even with the bucket seats that come equipped on a base Trailhawk, they provide a lot of support, with bolstering being rather aggressive for a crossover in this market. In front of you, between the analog gauges, a digital display will showcase a wide range of information, where you can customize what you see from this screen. And by using the buttons mounted on the heated leather-wrapped steering wheel, you can scroll through fuel economy statistics, driver assist features, and vehicle info. Then moving over to the infotainment system, you'll have an 8.4-inch touchscreen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility. And while not equipped on this model today, you have the ability to opt for onboard navigation and the premium Alpine speaker system to amplify the audio of your favorite music. With most of the new Jeep products transitioning to the Uconnect 5 software, this user interface, despite showing its age, should be easy to get accustomed to with the quick access buttons found at the bottom of the screen and the clean menu layout. You'll have physical buttons and dials for the dual zone climate control, front and rear defrosters, and fan speed. But to access the 2-level heated seats and heated steering wheel, they will be embedded in the climate menu. As always, there'll be a rear backup camera, and to help park this crossover, you will have trajectory. Making our way to the center console, to the left will be the drive mode selector and terrain management system for when you encounter snow or obstacles on the trails. And to the right, you'll find a USB input and 12-volt outlet. Then finally taking a look at the center storage compartment, there'll be plenty of room for smaller items, and you'll find an additional USB input. Above, our model doesn't have a power moonroof, but that is available through the $3,300 Sun, Sound, and Navigation Group package. Now moving on to the second row, we're going to start off on the passenger side. And this seat has been adjusted all the way back and is somewhat on a recline. And I have plenty of legroom here, which is a bit surprising. When you take a look at the Cherokee from the outside, it does look smaller compared to the Mazda CX-50, also the Subaru Forester and Outback Wilderness, but the interior spacing is more than abundant, especially when compared to the Ford Bronco Sport. If you remember that review, the second row was rather tight, even though you had plenty of headroom. Whereas I think the Cherokee Trailhawk is a family-friendly crossover that does give you the creature comforts, but also has the rugged attributes that you want to experience with a Jeep. Now, when it comes to headroom, though, you do have plenty of it. I think if you're somewhere on the height of 5'8" or 5'9", you should have no problem sitting back here, and you don't need to worry about hitting your head on the headliner. Then, moving on to the center seat, the center hump is somewhat aggressive and rather wide, which does take away from legroom and shoulder room. And really, for a lot of compact crossovers, I just don't think you can fit a third person back here in the second row, and the Cherokee is no different. So if you are somebody that is prioritizing more of a practical or a vehicle that's a bit more spacious for that second row, you might want to upgrade to the Wrangler. However, the Cherokee Trailhawk is a nice balance where it is a comfortable crossover, but also a vehicle that can go off-road and has those off-road capabilities. Then moving on to the driver's side, this seat is adjusted to someone of my height, around 5'5", and I have a lot of legroom here. So what you have here with the Cherokee Trailhawk is a crossover that from the outside does look somewhat small, but when you step inside, it has a lot of interior spacing, which is going to be a surprise if you are cross-shopping this with some of the new arrivals in this segment. Also back here, you do have 2 rear air vents, and not something we typically see in this market. We have 2 USB-C inputs, 2 USB inputs, and a 115-volt 3-pronged outlet, which is really great to see, because if you are going on that longer road trip, or maybe you're going camping, you can charge up your laptop or your iPad, but also, if you do have passengers with newer smartphones, they can easily charge them back here. And rounding out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now coming around to the back, optional is a power liftgate for the Trailhawk, but it's not equipped on this model. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right around 25.8 cubic feet of room. Now that is not a class leader in this particular segment, especially for rugged off-roaders in the compact crossover market, but I do think you'll have plenty of room for all your gear, or if you are going on a road trip with the family, I think you'll be able to fit probably 5 to 6 bags of luggage back here, no problem, with the second row seats up. I was also able to fit all my camera gear today. That is 2 bags of camera gear, a gimbal box, and a tripod, and could have stacked up even more items for this video. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right around 54 cubic feet of room, which again is not going to be a class leader, but it's still giving you a good amount of practicality where if you do plan on taking this vehicle off-road and maybe you're going to go out camping, I think you'll definitely have enough room for the tent, for maybe even skis and snowboards if you are going up to the mountains during the winter. This vehicle is just all around practical, and I think a perfect size for most Americans. Then on either side of the rear cargo area, you will have some side pockets for some smaller items such as water bottles or maybe even a first aid kit. Then beneath the floor mat, you will find your spare tire, which is common for rugged trims in the crossover market. So if you do encounter a flat on your road trips or travels, you can fix that and be back on the road. And then finally, which is not installed on this model today, there are indentations for your rear cargo cover, which will keep all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else that is irreplaceable, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that nobody will peek in and steal what you have. And finally, for the moment you've all been waiting for, let's go on that test drive. While the Cherokee Trailhawk isn't the newest or most modernized crossover in this segment, there's a lot of qualities and attributes for the Trailhawk that I really like when compared to its closest rivals, such as the Ford Bronco Sport, the Subaru Outback and Forester Wilderness, and also the Mazda CX-50. Sure, you can say that the interior and the technology is a bit outdated with the Uconnect 4 system and the lack of a full digital gauge cluster, but the 3 crossovers that I just mentioned don't give you a full digital gauge cluster, and I still find the Uconnect 4 system when compared with these rivals to be on par with them, even though I would like to see that Uconnect 5 make its way into this vehicle at some point in the near future. But for me, it all comes down to the driving experience, the driving dynamics, and really the interior quality, because these seats are a highlight for the Trailhawk. They're aggressively bolstered and they feel very premium, and take it as you will, I find these to be very comfortable for someone of my body frame. So if you are thinner and smaller, I think you're going to love the Trailhawk. What I also love too is that there's soft touch materials found throughout the interior, on the dashboard, on the armrests, and it just feels very entry-level luxury-like. It does feel on par with some of the newer rivals that we are seeing make their way into this segment. But I think what really draws my attention the most is the driving dynamics, because with the all-terrain tires, you do expect to have a diminished feel when you are on roads with imperfections. You're going to hear the road noise. It's not going to feel as refined or as comfortable. And yet, for the Cherokee Trailhawk, it is a bit different than the Subaru Outback and Forester Wilderness, because I did notice that with the all-terrain tires, it took away from what the Forester and Outback are all about, and I think is a bit of a departure from what those vehicles are offering. Whereas the Cherokee Trailhawk, this feels quite natural on the roadways. You don't really hear a lot of road noise, which is a bit of a surprise, especially at around 40 miles an hour. So if you are cruising on the back roads or you are in the suburbs, you're not going to sit there and complain about that noise entering the cabin. So I really like that. But when it comes to the handling and cornering ability, sure, you are going to have some body roll. It's not going to be the most athletic or spry vehicle out there. Also, of course, with the suspension being off-road tuned, you are going to get a bit thrown around, but it's not going to be so egregious where it's like you're driving a sports car or a sports crossover that has a sports tuned suspension. So it is daily drivable, it is family friendly, and it's a vehicle that I think is a great alternative to the Wrangler, because if you are somebody that is on a budget, at around $40,000, you're getting a vehicle that feels very much like all the other compacts out there that are in this price range. But also you still have the off-road capabilities of a Wrangler, where if you do want to go on the trails or you're going to maybe go through deep snow and mud, you can do that as well. And I think it's a great one SUV solution that if you do have more of a thinner budget, you can go with the Cherokee Trailhawk and you're not going to feel as though you may be held back a bit. You're not going to feel as though that you compromise. I think it's a great vehicle for what Jeep is all about, but also when you compare it to a lot of other compacts, it's more capable than what we see from vehicles in this market. Now, I do really like the leather wrapped steering wheel. It feels really nice in the hands, very nice and premium. And when it comes to that steering, it is somewhat light, but is direct. So on these back roads, I can enjoy the corners a bit, but it's not going to be a vehicle that's going to feel very planted to the road. When it comes to overall vision, you do have plenty of it. Nice panoramic view. A-pillars are somewhat aggressive, which will create a bit of a blind spot when you do approach an intersection. Now, when it comes to your side mirrors, they are placed in a good spot. They're also rather aggressive, so you can see what is in your blind spots. And then looking out back, even with the headrest in the way, you have a nice big rear window, so you can see everything behind you, so you have a lot of vision. Also, with the seating position, you do sit pretty high up in this crossover, with it having around 8.8 inches of ground clearance. What I will tell you, though, is that when it comes to cornering, maybe at like a 90-degree angle, you are going to feel as though this vehicle is a bit wider than it really is in reality. So I have noticed that I've been taking the corners a bit more careful just because I'm afraid of curbing those wheels. I think it's mostly because with the seating position, but also the way the dashboard is laid out and how high it is, you do have to look a little higher up and a little bit over that front hood to see what is immediately to your side, especially to your right. All right, so getting on the highway, let's see how the Cherokee Trailhawk performs. I will have about 2 miles before my next exit, so I can maybe try passing a few slower drivers. Love the sound of the V6. Adds a lot of character to this crossover. Now, I will be honest that the 9-speed automatic transmission isn't my favorite pairing, although it is on par with the 6-speed automatic that I experienced with the Mazda CX-50, and I do believe it will give you a bit more engagement than the Subaru Outback and Forester Wilderness that has a CVT paired with the turbocharged 4-cylinder engine for the Outback and the naturally aspirated 4-cylinder for the Forester. And again, at highway speeds, this feels very composed. Also, not a lot of road noise. The engine isn't droning, and it just feels very smooth overall. And that, to me, is really one of the biggest takeaways from this review, because when you compare it to the Ford Bronco Sport, when you compare it to other rugged crossovers with all-terrain tires, you're not going to have the most enjoyable experience. Of course, it is purpose-built, so if you're somebody that does go off-road very frequently throughout the year, that's not going to be an issue. But if you're somebody that maybe goes to the mountains to ski and snowboard a couple times during the winter, or maybe you have a yearly camping trip, you can drive the Trailhawk year-round, not get tired of it. I think it's a great performing crossover, but also it's one that is very plush. It is rather upscale, even though it is somewhat old. And also, it's a vehicle that I think is very practical. It's daily drivable, and it's one that I think it's really just the best of both worlds. It's an all-around great crossover that yes, I do think that we need to see an update at some point, probably in 2023 or 2024. But when you compare it to its closest rivals right now, such as that Bronco Sport or even the Subaru Outback Wilderness, I think this is certainly on par with them. But also, one thing I haven't talked about during this test drive is that it's one of the last vehicles, not only in the rugged segment, but in compact crossover in general, that have a V6. And I think with the V6, you're going to have a bit more enjoyment behind the wheel. It's going to be a very fun crossover. What I also like too is that even with the higher ground clearance and the off-road suspension, handling really isn't that bad. So all in all, after this test drive, I think the Cherokee Trailhawk is a great value, not only in its segment, but within the Jeep family, where it's more upscale than the Compass Trailhawk, but also it's more affordable than the Wrangler. I also think it's a bit more family friendly and conducive for daily driving purposes. And that's why, after this test drive, I think that the Trailhawk should still be worth taking a look at. And also, I think it's a vehicle that is still on par with its closest rivals. So to wrap up my time with the 2022 Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk, I have to be honest, I think this vehicle is still providing a lot of value to consumers in the $40,000 price range. Sure, it's still showing its age. It's around 7 to 8 years old for this generation, but I think buyers are going to love the user-friendliness of the interior layout with the actual physical buttons and dials for your climate control settings and also your head unit. But I also like the fact that the interior quality is very much on par with the newer rivals in this segment. But best of all to me, and this is the biggest takeaway, is the fact that with off-road suspension and the all-terrain tires, it doesn't diminish the ride quality. And that is a stark difference than what we see from others in this segment. So if you are somebody that is looking for a family-friendly crossover that can double as a daily driver but also being off-road capable, I still think the Cherokee Trailhawk is worth taking a look at because, one, it is somewhat affordable. Also, it is more conducive for more of an all-around driving experience that maybe the Wrangler isn't giving you, but also you get a better powertrain than the Compass Trailhawk. So within the Jeep family, I think the Cherokee Trailhawk is really, I think, a great buy, but also amongst its rivals, even though it is 7 to 8 years old for this generation, I still believe it is on par with all the other competitors right now in this segment. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more. Also make sure to follow me on Instagram at Boston Autoblog so you can see what I'm up to and what vehicles I'll be featuring in the future. And I will see you guys next time.